Have you ever felt kind of dizzy or off balance, or maybe a migraine starts to flare up right as a storm is rolling in? If that's you, you are definitely not alone, and I promise it is not just in your head. So let's dive into this, because today we're going to transform that feeling of being at the mercy of the weather into a clear, tactical plan you can actually use. Does this just feel a little too familiar? You know, that nagging sense of vertigo or brain fog that seems to show up right on schedule with the weather forecast? So many people experience this, feeling their bodies react to every little shift in the atmosphere. So let's break down exactly why this is happening and, more importantly, what you can do about it. You know, the typical reaction to these symptoms is something experts call maladaptive avoidance, which is basically a fancy way of saying you cancel your plans, you hunker down inside, and you just wait for the storm to pass. But look, that is not a long-term solution. Our goal here isn't to hide from the weather, it's to build a really proactive defense against it. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle the core problem of being a human barometer. Then, we're going to build our defense with 3 key pillars: regulating pressure, building your buffer, and grounding your brain. And finally, we'll pull it all together into a simple checklist you can start using immediately.
So what is actually going on in your body? Well, it's pretty wild. It turns out your inner ear is, quite literally, a direct sensor for barometric pressure. So when the pressure outside changes really fast, your inner ear feels it, and that can set off a whole cascade of symptoms. We're talking dizziness, migraines, the whole shebang.
The most important thing to grasp here is that this requires a shift in your mindset. We're moving from being passive victims of the weather to becoming active tacticians. This is all about building a system that helps you thrive no matter what the forecast says.
Okay, let's get into our first pillar, regulating pressure. I mean, if the problem is a rapid change in pressure, the most logical first step is to figure out how to slow that change down, right?
And I love this way of thinking about it. Imagine a sudden pressure drop is like a car hitting a giant pothole at full speed. It's a sharp, jarring event for your body's balance system. So our goal is to install a speed bump to smooth out that ride.
This visualizes the solution perfectly. On the left, you've got that sharp, nasty spike that just overwhelms your system. But on the right, it's a nice, gentle slope. This is exactly what pressure filtering earplugs do. Now here's the key. They don't block the change, they just slow it down, turning that jolt into a gradual ramp that your inner ear can actually adapt to.
So how do we actually create this speed bump? 2 key actions. First, use those pressure filtering plugs. And timing here is absolutely critical. You have to put them in before the pressure shift hits. Second, you got to keep your nasal passages clear. Your eustachian tube, that little tube connecting your middle ear to your throat, is your body's natural pressure equalizer. A simple saline rinse can make a huge difference in helping it do its job. Okay, on to pillar 2. Regulating the pressure on the outside is only half the battle. We also have to strengthen our body's internal resilience. It's time to build up our biological buffer. This internal buffer is all about your body's internal chemistry and how well it can handle stress. I want you to think of your inner ear as this closed, fluid-filled system. Well, what's happening inside the rest of your body has a direct impact on how that little system responds to the outside world.
Here are 2 simple but incredibly powerful tactics. First up, fluid loading. The second you get a weather alert on your phone, start increasing your water intake by about 20%. Why? Because dehydration can make that fluid in your inner ear a lot less stable. Second, we have the sodium lockdown. A big, salty meal during a low-pressure system can cause a fluid surge in the inner ear, which is a major trigger, especially for anyone dealing with Meniere's disease.
We can also bring in some reinforcements with supplements. There's good evidence that consistent, high doses of magnesium and riboflavin can actually raise the brain's neurological threshold. Think of it like this. It makes your brain less reactive, so it takes a much stronger trigger, like that pressure change, to actually set off a vestibular migraine.
All right, on to our third and final pillar, grounding the brain. This one is all about how your brain makes sense of all the confusing signals it's getting during bad weather.
So let's talk about a huge challenge here, something called flat light. You know those gray, overcast, dreary days? Your brain loses its visual horizon, which is its main anchor for balance. So when your visual data gets all blurry and unreliable, your brain starts to rely more on the inner ear, which, remember, is already stressed out by the pressure change. It's really a perfect storm for sensory confusion.
So, how do we compensate for that? First, ground yourself physically. Proactively using a cane or trekking poles on those flat light days is a brilliant move. It gives your brain a solid, reliable third point of contact with the ground. Second, optimize your vision. Specialized lenses, like ones with an FL41 tint, can filter out that harsh, weird light and reduce the sensory overload on your brain.
And this might be the most powerful tool of them all. Seriously, how you talk to yourself about your symptoms matters so much. If you think, oh no, I'm having a relapse, your brain hears that as a threat, and it ramps up your nervous system, which just makes everything worse. Instead, you have to consciously reframe it. Tell yourself, my pressure sensor's just reacting to the storm. That simple change can calm everything down and stop your symptoms from spiraling.
Okay, we've covered the why and the how. Now let's boil it all down into one simple, actionable checklist. This is your go-to plan. First things first, you need a trigger. Get yourself a weather app that can send you alerts for barometric pressure changes. The number you want to watch for is any shift greater than 0.08 inches of mercury. When you see that alert pop up, that's your signal. It's time to act.
And here is the plan, in 4 simple steps. Number 1, filtering. Get those pressure plugs in your ears before the shift. 2, hydrating. Drink an extra 16 to 20 ounces of water. 3, grounding. If it's a flat light day, grab a walking aid. And 4, reframing. Consciously label your symptoms as just a sensor response. That's it. That is your defense plan.
The key takeaway from all of this is that you are not powerless. By understanding what's going on and by applying these strategies, you can fundamentally change your relationship with the weather. You really do have the tools to become a tactician.
This isn't about avoiding life every time the forecast looks a little grim. It's about having the confidence and the strategy to engage with the world on your own terms. So the only question left is, are you ready to command the calm?